Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, and welcome to Foster's Forums. This is our week 4, and actually the final week in our conversation series of Trailblazers and Deavere. We are so excited to have you all with us tonight, and so excited to have the incredible Anna Deavere Smith with us in conversation with the incredible Foster's board member, Karine Plantadit. So thank you all for being here. I'm Jason A. Sparks. I am the president and executive director of Foster's. Before we get started with everything, if you're new to Zoom webinars, which we're using tonight, you don't have to worry about turning off your camera or anything right now. Don't worry about that. That's all taken care of already. But 2 features that I do want to bring your attention to. Number 1, right down below is the chat. That is for all of you tonight to talk to each other, to maybe underline something that Anna or Karine has said that you like or whatnot. And actually right now, just to kind of get the chat rolling, I'd love for everybody to go into the chat, make sure that you're chatting with the panelists and attendees. There's a little pull down there, and just say where you're dialing in from tonight, so we can kind of get that chat rolling, where you are in the world today. The other one that I do want to bring your attention to, which is almost as important, if not more important, is the Q&A button. The Q&A is where you should be asking questions to both Karine and Anna tonight. I'll be monitoring those questions all night, and then when a little bit about 2/3 of the way through the conversation tonight, we'll start taking questions from y'all, but you do not have to wait. You can at any moment go ahead and start putting questions in that question and answers, and we'll start feeding those questions to Anna and to Karine. So for those of you that are new tonight, I think there's a lot of you that are new tonight. So welcome to Foster's Forums. Foster's Theatrical Artist Residency is a new nonprofit started this year because a group of us saw a need to change how we make theater and give the process of creation more time. We are all about supporting artists in process without the need for product in their process of creation, as well as supporting storytellers, actors, playwrights in connecting with their own artistic voice. So one of those ways of connecting with their own artistic voice is to connect with others, and that's why we started Foster's Forums. Another thing that we are doing, we actually just closed applications a little while ago to our Cultivating Curiosity Through COVID retreat, which is going to be taking place in January, where 8 actors and 2 playwrights will get together for about 2 hours a day virtually, where we kind of discover what it's like to be curious, creatively curious at home, all while creating 2 new little virtual plays. So we're very excited about all of these. Soon we'll also be announcing our spring residency, which we're also very excited about. We love being able to support the community and be here for the community through things like Foster's Forums, Cultivating Curiosity, and then our residencies. But these need your support as well. Donations are a great way to support. We are a nonprofit organization. To make a tax-deductible donation, you can go to www.fostersresidency.org. It's where you registered for tonight. Or we actually have a Venmo, super easy, $1, $2, $5. If you enjoyed Foster's Forums tonight, this is a super easy and quick way. Our Venmo is at Foster's Residency. Super fast. You can just pull out your phone, Venmo that. And I know you hear this a lot, that any amount makes a difference, but I promise you it really does. We sent out these boxes of curiosity to all of our participants of Cultivating Curiosity. And some of those items were $2, $3, $4. So your impact is huge. And we're here to do these things for you. So I will remind everybody of that at the end of the night. But again, that's www.fostersresidency.org, as well as our Venmo, which is at Foster's Residency. So here we go. I'm so excited for this conversation tonight. I'm going to let Karine in a second introduce the incredible Anna Deavere Smith. It is my pleasure to introduce Karine Plantadit. Maybe you know her from her Tony-nominated portrayal in Come Fly Away, or maybe you caught her in Moving Out, or maybe you caught her in Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. I have been lucky enough to know Karine for over, I think, 10 years now. And I'm most happy to call her an artistic, wonderful, creative human being who truly cares about the people around her and the art that's being made around her and fostering and caring for that. She's an incredible human being, and I'm so happy that she's here tonight. So, Karine, Plantadit, come on in. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so happy you're here.
Jason.
Hello, hello, Karine. Thank you. And just so everybody, I've asked everyone to put where they're calling in from. Karine's actually calling in from France, where it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So, Karine, thank you. Thank you.
I could, I could not say no for so many reasons. And the two biggest one is that I love speaking to Anna and I love speaking with you. And I love being part of Foster's residency board. So this was a no-brainer for me. I welcome every single one of you. It's so weird. We don't see people in this thing.
I know, right? Yeah, I know. It's
All
like
right, so I'm just gonna assume you guys are good because I can see your faces.
this is where
And
you could use the chat, everybody, too.
oh yeah, that's right. Please let me know how you are. It's really weird. Um, I was so ready to see faces right now. Anyways, um, I have had the chance to be a board member for Foster's residency for since it started. It's very young, and I have been those performers and dancers that really believe in the process. I truly believe that it's a sacred thing. It's sacred, and it demands so much I don't know, awareness that oftentimes I feel in America we don't get. I think other places in the world do get it, but for some reason in America it's a lot faster. You got to produce faster, um, and there's less chance to dive inward, like where you will lose yourself literally, because that's what we want, right? You want to lose yourself in the work, and so I'm very happy that I'm part of your board, and I'm very happy to invite Anna Deavere Smith, who will speak on different levels with Anna, but I was speaking to my boyfriend about Anna earlier, and I was like, every time I speak to Anna, I just leave the space expanded in my, and maybe in my understanding, or I learned about one more thing, or there's someone that I didn't know that she mentions. But Anna, on top of it, on top of being this incredible human being with whom you can have any kind of conversation, she's also someone who's done in the world, in the industry of the art. I mean, like mad things, mad. Like she's created her own way of theater. She was like, I don't know, I'm going to ask how it all went down, but it's like, who does that? Nobody, by the way. That's nobody does that.
Yeah, it's true.
So on top of being an incredible, she created her own theater style, but she's also obviously iconically in all these incredible movies, The American President, Philadelphia, and then TV series. And then she won many, many awards and all those great things. And then I call her and I say, Anna, you want to come and talk to me? And she goes, yeah. That's Anna. I can't wait. Can you bring her in?
Let's bring her in. Let's bring her in. I have a great chat. You two have a great chat, and I'll see you a little bit later. Have a great chat.
Bye,
Here's
Jason.
Here's Karine spreading lies about me again.
No, but wait. So, but Anna, before we start, whose photo is back there that I'm
So
seeing?
this is you may have met Lyle Ashton Harris, the great artist, and this is from an exhibition he did, in which he's a photographer and a performer, and so he did this exhibition about a boxer and also Billie Holiday. So this is him, all dressed up like Billie Holiday, and then he made the photograph.
Very, very cool.
Pretty cool, right?
Very. I did meet. So one of the things that Anna, let's talk about a little personal things, because why not? Because one of the things that Anna could do is invite people in our home. And I was one of these people. Can we talk about that dinner for a second?
Which one?
I want to talk about the dinner where we all had something to do.
Okay.
Do you remember what it was called? How did you even?
No, except that the point of it is I made a little film out of that dinner. Yeah.
So we were invited. We didn't know who was going to be there, and we had tasks to do during the dinner. And she had at the table, Anna had the table, someone like me or a boxer. That's what I remember, the boxer.
World cha-
We
out world champion, heavyweight champion of the world, Michael Bent,
Yes. Who else was there?
Elizabeth Strab,
Oh, Elizabeth Streb.
um, the then head of one of the curators at MoMA, Klaus Biesenbach, who ran PS1, and now he's in California, in Los Angeles. Uh, the late Ann Richards' daughter was there. Yeah, and I don't know if you remember the rodeo cowboy was there
The
from
rodeo cowboy was there.
the bull rider. He was a bull rider in real life. He was a real life rodeo bull rider. And Patricia Williams was a great theorist, a great legal theorist. It was
But
quite a
okay,
collection.
the name was something about what are you doing to my chi or something?
Yeah, yeah, that was a quote from Ann Richards. Yeah. I can't talk to you right now. You're using up my chi.
So we were invited and we had tasks to do. Like one of mine was at one point in the middle of the dinner, I will have to just step away and they will put music on and I will dance on this coffee table. No word spoken, just out of the blue, and I will come back and sit down and eat again. That was my task. So the whole evening, it's phenomenal. What got you to think about doing something like this? What was behind it for you?
Well, no, the Tribeca Film Festival called me up and said, would you like to just do a short film? We have $10,000, and $10,000 actually isn't very much to make even a film as short as this, which was I think 5 minutes long or something like that because you have to edit it and all these things. And I said okay, and I just remembered an interview that I did of Ann Richards when she was dying, really, of cancer. And she talked about this treatment that she was having and how she was going to this woman who was doing energy work with her and told her, you're doing too much for too many people and you're using up your chi. And so she talked in the interview about how she'd really learned about that and gotten to the point of people call her up and she said, I can't talk to you right now, you're using up my chi, and hangs up the phone. So I really wanted to make something around that. Yeah, yeah, and I just gathered together the most interesting people I knew who were willing to come, and you were certainly one of them.
Oh my God, Anna, yes.
I flew the boxer in from Los Angeles, and I flew the bull rider in from Shoshone, Idaho, and then the rest of you were in New York.
Yes, yes. What a story. And I actually think that you learned so much about that rodeo, right?
Well, I knew about him because I performed him in my play called Let Me Down Easy. And so I really spent a lot of time with him and bonded with him. And he was a very important part of my life for a couple years. And I was too of him. And I'm proud of the fact that, I've interviewed thousands of people by now and portrayed a variety of people in my plays, and I seek to find people and understand people who are very different than me, and I think that he was probably among the most different of the people who I've portrayed in my career.
Yes, exactly. So Bettina, you're correct. This was actually someone that I know called Bettina, who is a wonderful being. She was like, is this the bull rider portrayed in the one woman
Yeah,
show? So
and
yes.
Let Me Down Easy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Oops, wait a minute, I've just lost you. Where are you? Okay, good. Now, let me ask you a question, Anna. I want to know when we talk about forging new theater or what was your journey to kind of find your way into this very peculiar, unique way of doing theater? Because you started as a you went to school just like we all did. What did you do? What happened?
No, I didn't go to school. Right. Yeah, well, I went to school, and I went to an acting conservatory after I got out of college, and I really had a lot of questions about the basic way that we're trained and that people are still trained, which is with an idea that you can find any character in the world inside of yourself, and what you need to be is honest. And I thought that that was a flawed idea. And probably because of growing up in the United States in racism, I think everything about how we are raised and how we live suggests that we aren't like one another. And I actually think we are not. I mean, I'm not a racist, but I don't think that I'm like you. I think you're different from me. And I really worship difference in a way. I think it's great that you're different than me. Um, and so I was looking for a process that could acknowledge that. And that's why I created this form of theater where I interview people, and usually about a crisis or a time in our country that's in a crisis. And then it's not that I think I become them or I am them. I study them and try to make a portrait of them. I would say you're in two plays of mine. One, the collaboration with Judith Jamison. You should probably talk about her a little bit because that's who brought us together. And also, you were in a version of my play "Let Me Down Easy," which the bull rider is also in. So yeah, yeah. So that's really my work is about. I call it the broad jump towards the other, which is I'm making a jump towards trying to portray you, and I know I won't make it. I don't, you know, I know I won't make it because you're you and I'm me.
Yeah. So wow. We are going to talk about Judy Jeminson. I was going to absolutely bring her in and speak a little bit about him and your experience of that time. So during I joined the Ailey company, and I'm not very sure in the timing, but I think it was like 1991 or so. And I was prior to this in the Jemison project. So I was with Judy and her company before she was even part of the Ailey company. And then they merged the company. So I was fortunate enough to be chosen to be part of that wave of merging. And do you remember when we did this?
Yeah,
Anna?
so we did this. I
93? No.
93 exactly. So I came to Baltimore. Judith's idea was that she was creating for the 40th anniversary of the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater, American Dance Theater, and she had seen my play Fires in the Mirror in New York, which was a play about riots in Brooklyn, where I played, I think, 23 different people, and people who were nothing like me, and people who did not agree about what had happened in Brooklyn. So it's like perfect material for me, people who don't agree. And she loved the play, and she came and asked me if I would make a ballet about the 40 years in the Ailey company. And she knew exactly what she wanted. That's very Judy, right? I mean, like the first meeting, she said, "This is what I see." Boom. The meeting took less than 15 minutes, and she was out the door of my apartment. And I had said, yes, I would do this. And so, what it required, first of all, was to meet you all in Baltimore, where you were dancing, interestingly enough, my hometown. And I, in the course of a weekend, interviewed every single person in the company. And actually, I remember when my agent was making the deal, he called me up and he said, "Dancers." He goes, "They just want you to do interviews all day long." And I said, I don't think Anna can do them all day long. I mean, what about a lunch break? And their answer was, "We'll bring in some fruit." So I just did interview after interview
It
after.
was around, we were probably 27 people in the company.
Oh, it was 30 people.
30, okay, 30 people in a company.
It was 30 people, one right after the other after the other. At the time, I lived in San Francisco, so I'd flown to Baltimore to do this. And I remember with you, it's funny, I hadn't heard you speak. And my idea of you is I thought you were like a really like an upper middle class, like an upper class, not an upper middle class, like an aristocratic American black woman. That's who I thought you were, just from looking at you and watching you and seeing you dance. Because I was, watched all the performances, of course. And then you sat down, and here comes this French accent. I was really surprised. But I talked to every single person, and the last person I talked to eventually became one of the big stars of the company, who's Matthew. He was brand new, like young. He was newer than you at that point, like brand new.
He was a baby.
He was a baby, scared to death.
Yeah, Matthew Rushing is the rehearsal, the second hand, or the first hand of Robert Battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
But that's a
did.
beautiful thing about that company, isn't it? That once you're in it forever. And they find ways to use people in all different kinds of capacities, even after they don't dance anymore.
Yeah, very, very special because, and so I want to talk about how you had to, so we shared the stage. So Anna was not only imitating, they chose maybe 12 voices, right? 12
Yeah,
stories maybe
yeah,
that you had to do.
yeah.
Judith Jamison choreographed the ballet. So there was, group pieces, duets, and then the solos where the people that Anna was imitating. So she will speak, she was on mic, and you would speak our voices or words while we were actually dancing our words. Pretty amazing, Anna, because you had to go through. I mean, you're used to this, but there were Chaya is from Japan. We had Elizabeth from
The Philippines.
Philippines. You had you had Sarita and Dudley. Oh my God, you had all the the big people like meaty people, and then
Renee,
obviously
Renee.
Rennie
But
Robinson
by
and
the big people, you mean the people who had actually known Mr. Ailey and who had been in, Sarita had been in the company for a long time. And it started talking about his funeral. And she had been, had to dance at that funeral at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. And Renee had known him. And then in Desmond, it was extraordinary experience for me.
really, and you had to. I guess also what my question. I mean, you put yourself usually on in theater. You do one woman shows. I mean, you do other things obviously, but one of your thing is one woman show where you're on your own, having to hold the entire play on your own with that many people in your head, right? And all of that. And here you were surrounded by 30 dancers just rolling around and roaming around. This is a lot. This was a challenge.
Well, there were two things that were a challenge. One, which was I had worked with Judy throughout this particular summer, and working on the script and everything, and choosing which parts of the interviews. I wrote, what I thought, and so forth. And she kind of explained what was going to happen, and then I came to my first Ailey rehearsal ever. First of all, let me just say something about Ailey to that if I were to write a book about how to make an arts organization, I would start with this, which was that the first time I ever walked in the building, I had already interviewed everybody, and then I came over to the Ailey building, and the one on Ailey Way. You walked up all those steps and everything, and Michael Kaiser greeted me. He was then the executive director. Do you know what the first thing he said to me was? You are home now.
Mm.
Somebody says that to you, and they're going to get everything they need, right? You're home now. That was amazing. And I went to the first rehearsal, and I'm sitting there, with the lighting designer on one side and Judy on another, and the sound designers down there, and the costume designer. We're all lined up against the wall, and you guys are all about to go into rehearsal. And I don't know if the people watching know that you basically wear rags. You don't really wear very many clothes. You just take some rag and wrap it around. And whatever the look was on my face, the lighting designer turned to me and said, I know, makes you want to go to the gym, right? So that was number one. Like, I have to go on stage with these people? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then Judy called me up one time. Again, I'm back in San Francisco. She's in New York. Hi, well, I wanted to talk to you about what you're going to wear. And she said, we're all going to be on basically like no clothes. The boys had on those tight pink pants and no top, and you guys didn't have on much more than that.
It was all mesh. We had a mesh outfit. Remember? Yes.
And then the other thing was that no matter how hard, because I did the opening in New York, and then you all did it around the world without me, with my voice on tape. So no matter how hard I studied when I would come back to do it with you, it was never good enough for you guys. Like, you were very polite, but it was basically you had rehearsed to this tape as if it was a thing like music or something. And here, and so, like, if I was a pause off, it threw you off. So I could never be right. I could never do well enough.
We fell in love with the tape.
Yeah.
We fell in love with the predictability of the tape that we can count on, and now we had to actually do live music, right? Just like when we do Revelation live music,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's the same thing. Oh my gosh, did you? Is this one of your memory that you kind of cherish a great deal, having
Yeah,
done that?
there's nothing, it's one of the highlights of my life. I think getting a chance to work with the Avenel Dance Company, getting a chance to work with Judith Jamison, the love I have for all of the dancers, in particular the ones that I was performing with, you, Renee, Sarita, Michael Thomas, and Judy. I mean, I had to be on stage with Judy. I had to perform with her. Horrifying, terrifying. But I really, it's one of the most, in my mind, one of the most important experiences I had, because as an arts organization, there are few arts organizations that are run as well and have such a standard of excellence as the Albany American Dance Theater. And I don't know how many people know that the famous ballet of Alvin Ailey has been endowed to be performed forever. Who ever heard of that? That it is endowed. The ballet itself is endowed so that it can be performed. It's extraordinary. It's
And talking about this is the 60th anniversary this year of the Ailey Company, and also of Revelation. This ballet he did in this little rickety, studio that is portraying the experience of African American, and is today the most seen ballet in the modern world. That's crazy.
it's crazy.
I mean, it's beyond. So I want to segue into so probably of your pieces, Lean on Me. I saw the Rotnicking. Which one was the first one that you've ever done in that genre?
Oh, the first one was done a long time ago with other actors. I had 20 actors in the first one. It was just called On the Road, and it was done in New York, in a studio, a dance studio in Tribeca. And so that was the first one. And then it evolved, and by the time anybody learned about me or my work, or to the extent that people did, it wasn't until the 13th one, and that one was about riots in Crown Heights, Brooklyn.
Yes. And so what is the process that you usually go? You just go out there in the street and then you just ask people, can you talk to them? How does that really work?
Well, with the first one, I did because I was still experimenting with how to make this form. I didn't even know what the form was. And I literally would walk up to people and say, I know an actor who looks like you. If you'll talk to me for an hour, I'll invite you to see yourself performed. And so, I mean, to the lifeguard at the Y, the 63rd Street Y. I talked to a lady up the street. I lived on Amsterdam Avenue. Lady up the street had a little secondhand shop. I talked to the extraordinary Meredith Monk is represented in that one. She was the most famous person in that one. And so, yeah, like all kinds of people, a hairdresser, a French hairdresser, actually. So, uh, that was the first one. And now I don't actually walk up to people on the street, but if I have an idea, I start talking to somebody who knows something about it. And then I ask them, who else should I talk to? And before you know it, I've talked to a lot of people. For my last play, Notes from the Field, about the school to prison pipeline, I talked to 250 people in 6 geographic areas. And for the Rodney King, as you call it, the one about the Los Angeles riots, I talked to 320 people. So I talked to a lot of people, and then I have to get it narrowed down into, a show that's an hour and a half or 2 hours long. Yeah.
And in what you're doing, what drives you to ask this person versus that person? Like how do you pick and choose who you want to talk to?
Well, I throw a wide net, so that the choosing is more once I'm in the rehearsal hall and I have to get all this material down to, boil down. But yeah, I don't, I'm happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me. I would say that's one thing. I don't chase people who don't want to talk to me, because ideally I find somebody who would be screaming what they have to say for a mountaintop, and I just happen to be walking by. So even in the course of the hour I talk to somebody, I might I have a general idea what I want to talk about, but what I really need to know in the course of that hour is, what do they want to tell me? What do
Mm.
they want to talk about? Because otherwise, it can't make it on the stage. People really understand when you get up on stage and you move, they know that's not normal walking, even if you are walking choreographically. It's choreography. But because of naturalism, we think that acting is just like acting like real life, and reality television hasn't helped that. It's not. It's also as energized as when you jump. So if I don't have somebody who's speaking to me who is emotionally, or if not emotionally, like intellectually, or they're revved up, they got to be revved up about something. They got to have to want to get it off their chest. They have to be all the things we say you shouldn't be. It's like they have to, whatever they're talking about, they have to take it too seriously. They have to be all jacked up, basically, if they're going to end up in my play. So either I have to know they're going to be that way about something that's happening or going to happen, or you know or they have to be just making sense out of a circumstance around them.
This is lovely. And I also know, Anna, that you are a teacher. You're a professor.
Yeah.
So in when you're teaching, is it are you teaching the way, what is it that you're teaching? I want to know, like,
General, I think so. This year I taught a class called One Person Shows, and obviously, we couldn't meet in person, so there was a very good thing to teach on Zoom, and people making shows in their bathtub or their kitchen or something, because they weren't going to be on stage. Or normally I like to teach in a dance studio because it's a big open space with light. I don't really like theaters because of the darkness. It seems sort of haunting to me. But ultimately, what I'm teaching is expression. I'm teaching expression, and I'm trying to get people to discover in the course of working with me what they have to say. And it's not just what they have to say in this class, but to start to realize what it is they have to say in the world. And more importantly, what are their questions, right? So the best thing that could happen is somebody comes to my class and actually they leave with things messier, in more disarray, because they're for the most part, they're talented and they're smart, but they're starting out, they're trying to figure out, what's my mark going to be, what's my voice going to be, what am I going to be known for, and so they've got to come in contact with that. I can't give them that, but I can make an environment where it is likely, if they work hard, that they will come in contact with that thing that is going to make them curious, upset them, give them delight, that they're going to live with for a long time.
Jason, oof.
We got some great questions coming in
This
from
was so
about
good. Oh
20
my God.
minutes 20 minutes left. This is so great. The first one comes from Diana, and it has to do with your creative process, Anna. How do you approach, or what does your creative process differ when you approach a role written for you, say like your TV work, as opposed to your impersonation theater? How does that creative process
Right.
differ?
Well, I should say I would prefer to call my theater portrait theater and not impersonation theater,
I
because
apologize. Yeah.
it's a completely understandable thing, that it's an impression. But I'm not, an impersonator is a comic. I hope people laugh when they come see my shows at some things, but I'm really, it's not for the point of a comedy, or to send somebody up, or think of all the, I mean, even if I were to portray Donald Trump, I would work very hard with the same sort of principles I use to portray Karine, for example. But there's another kind of theater that is wonderful, and right now been very important, of the people who did impersonate Donald Trump, for example. Um, it's very different. There's just almost no similarity whatsoever. Because, for one thing, when I'm on television, and I'm always very grateful to be on television and get to work with wonderful, wonderful artists. And I'm talking about, not just the writer and the director, but and the other actors, but um, I've recently been working on a show where the head of props is just, she's brilliant. I mean, she really works in a way that the props that she leaves are giving things to the actor, giving clues to the actor. So there are all these extraordinary artists, and film and television has a lot more money than me. So there are all these resources that I don't have. That's number one. Number two, um, television is about the writer and the words, and getting the words right. And movies are about the director's vision. And my job is to deliver that vision in however that is spoken to me by a director. And my job is to push the story forward, in particular in television. It's also an incredibly hierarchical environment, which requires a lot of ability to be obedient. And unless you're a movie star or the star, but even so, the profession requires that people fit into. It's almost like the military, and you need to be able to fit into production. It's actually very serious, because every single 30 seconds costs a lot of money. And so I in my own work, of course, I set the rules. So it's very, very different experience, creatively and emotionally and intellectually. I'm very grateful that I can do both.
Yeah.
That's great. Another question from Jake. Can you talk a little bit more about what you try to get out of those interviews when creating your theater? What aspects do you think are most important about people to really dive into their character, and also what stuff doesn't make the cut?
Well, for me, I mean, everybody would be different. If someone else were doing this kind of a verbatim theater, it's now called, it would be very different what they do. I'm interested in expression. So I'm interested in how people sound, and how they move. So for me, a interview is going well if someone starts to, in addition to saying something interesting, that they start to sound and move in a way that is notable to me in the course of that hour. And it usually is that they're doing something different than they did, say, 3 minutes before. And that's usually my cue that this is something I should pay attention to. Um, yeah, and so I'm looking for that. I'm looking for variety of movement. And then I also usually telling a story that has a political or sociological meaning. There's meaning, and so I have to make sense sometimes of something that is complicated or in disarray in the world. And so I'm looking for people who are helping me understand what happened, and who are helping the audience understand what happened. For that individual, there's a good essay that I would recommend, written by Bertolt Brecht, the great German dramatist, called Street Scene. And he talks about how if you were to go out, which is probably easy to do now, in midst of any catastrophe, say like an accident, a car accident in the street, and you would ask someone what happened, like how they tell you what happened, according to Brecht, and I completely agree, has all of the characteristics of a performance. And it's not that they're trying to perform, it's that the normal way words work aren't enough to say what happened. So they have to add things like sounds that aren't words, or their hands, or they can't get through a sentence. And so they'll say, it just blew my mind. It just, I just, and I've never seen anything like it, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for something that goes ba 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 across the page. I think of sentences like jail sentences. And it's just too bad that we go to school and we have to, like, we learn about this thing that obediently goes across the page. That's not stage worthy. Karine should jump in here, because in fact, what I spoke of her in the Ailey piece was about her grandmother, who spoke a language in Central Africa that had 500 words. 500 words. So, Karine, like, how does she communicate with that limited amount of words?
My grandmother spoke Sango, and this is a language that has 500 words, and they use words, they intermute words. So let's say a prostitute is also a butterfly. So Pupulenge is the name of a prostitute and also a butterfly. Or when they talk about, let's say, a plane is just a big bird. They don't have the word for the plane, the big bird. So another one for something like salad or lettuce. Something like this. They call it the plant for the white people. So it's very full of image. It's extremely broad in your imagination. Like but you get it. You get what they're talking about. So easy. Yeah.
There's quite a few questions, and I actually want to leave you to. A bunch of people want to know, what was it like interacting with each other? Like, what was it like? What were your first impressions of each other? What was that creative process like, of meeting each other for that first time? So I'm actually.
Oh, I want to start. Wait, I want to start, Anna. I'll
say you should.
I want to start. When I sat down, right? And I was like, everybody was talking. You were like, oh yeah, she's gonna ask you questions about dance. That we were all talking about you, right? Knowing like what was going on in the room. So I sat down, and I really did not want to speak about dance. I wanted to speak about something else. And we segue with Judy, and Judy reminded me of my grandmother. That's how it all went down, and I started to talk. But at the end of the conversation, I started to look at you, and every time I will do a move, you will move with me. And I would be like, wait a minute, this is so interesting. So you would start. Okay, your turn.
Well, I mean, I already said something about the fact that, I had this idea of who you were before you opened your mouth. Um, And it's also because not everybody gets to be a dancer, especially little girls. In America, to be a dancer, to go to ballet school, to go to school. Most of the girls. And by the way, when I first got there that first day, and Michael had said, you're home now, and Shia and other people were talking to me, I was sort of like shocked that you were referred to as girls and boys, because that was like so like not politically correct. So, but the young ladies in the company had, for the most part, started dancing when they were very young. The boys, the men were like, well, at 18 they started dancing, and so it's a privilege to go to dance class in the United States. And so that's one of the reasons I had thought that you came from that type of privilege. But I think it also, being on stage with you, I remember seeing the show in Germany, in Cologne. I was with a friend of mine. And when you came on stage and started dancing, she was just like, oh my God, because your flexibility was so extraordinary. And I mean, Judy had you rolling all around on the floor and all this stuff. And here I am standing there in I think they ultimately dressed me in, I don't know, Miyake or Yoshi Mamamoto or something. And here you are rolling around on the floor, and I'm standing there looking like a parson.
So weird. So I wondered about something. What do you think of discipline? What's that word for you?
It's really, I admire people who are disciplined. The word disciplined, I don't know the etymology, but let's just discipline and disciplined. There's certainly the terrible part of being, punished. We think about it as punishment. But I admire people who work very hard to and for whom it's not a torture to try to perfect their craft. And that's another reason why working with Ailey was an extraordinary experience for me. Working with Bobby McDuffie, who's a concert violinist, working with Joshua Roman, who is a cellist, and most recently working with Marcus Shelby, who's a bass player. I like working with musicians for the same reason that I like working with the Ailey Company. It's because it is something that you have to practice or you can't do it. Period. Acting is harder to practice. You can't practice it alone. It has to be in the context of the larger storytelling that you're doing. And so, Bobby McDuffie and Joshua Roman practice 5 hours a day. You all have to get that dance right. I mean, I remember coming on stage, sort of you and Judy just working together and standing back and watching this. And it was an incredible experience because she assumes a certain level of skill that you have, and she's been a part of developing that skill. That doesn't really happen in the world of acting. Directors aren't really doing that. They're not doing it in television and movies either, unless it was a company like Liz Lecomte's company. But we don't have a discipline in that way. We have professionalism, and people work hard in their own way. But it's not. It's very different. It's just very different. It's not as you can't really write it down what it is. But I think there's a very specific technique. You've studied acting. I would bet that the dance techniques that you've learned are more specific, and somebody can say, that wasn't right. That's not the move, right? It's harder for a director they'll say, well, try it this way, and maybe it's like this, and it's like that. Everything's couched in a metaphor. But if I know with Judy, she'd be waiting off stage for me when I came off and be like, that wasn't right. You should have done this. You should have done that. I had to get used to that. I'd be like, man, I'm the company. I'm the guest.
That's funny, Anna. Anna, what do you think? Do you think the theater today, because of what we've gone through, and I know for you, what have you taken, or what are you still taking from this experience we've had with the pandemic for you as an artist? Like what has merged, or what has come out or what has come down or come out? Which way, did you go?
Well,
Or
for me, it's very difficult because, most of everything I'm working on is in process right now. I mean, certainly being on television and the restrictions, of COVID, being tested, 5 times in the course of 6 days and stuff like that. I would say something about my teaching, that I loved teaching on Zoom. And I felt that it created a different type of intimacy, than I'm able to have in the room. And the other thing I was thinking about, Judy, yesterday, and as it occurred to me, that the other thing is, when I teach in a real room with, what, you know 15 students, 20, whatever, I have to hold that room. I have to hold that space. I have to hold that space. And because I'm a performer also, and it's not that I'm performing, but I feel like when I sit down to watch the work, that I have to hold the full space, not just the person I'm watching work, but everybody there. And when it went on Zoom, I wasn't needing to do that because I wasn't in the same space as them. And I think it freed up a different type of intellectual and emotional focus. And plus, their eyes were right there. So I ended up finding it very exciting. I don't know. I think for my students, it was still very difficult not to be in one another's company. But actually, I kind of loved it.
hmm. Wow. I know that Jason is on his way. I wanted to add this thing for me. I know that it's all about intimacy. And I love that you're mentioning it as well. I feel that the pandemic as giving us the chance to be more intimate, and it's on all kind of levels, on with ourselves obviously, but also how we interact with each other. So I feel like theater today is going to have that. It needs that because we can't hide in these big rooms, Las Vegas, or those mega room or Madison Square Garden. We can't be there. We have to actually scale everything down to a smaller number where we're going to have to be more face. I mean, I just feel like that's the way theater is going to go on, and humanity is going to need it. It's going to be needing intimacy, not just the big show, big fireworks, and all of that. I don't think that's where we're going right now. Anyway,
Wow. I think you're right, and I hope you're right.
We have one last question, which is also great to touch on your writings as well, Anna. Kyle asks, how did your book Letters to a Young Artist come to be? I read it each year to my senior high school acting students. It provides inspirational transformation in the way they see themselves as artists and as people.
Wow, that is such a wonderful question, and thank you for teaching high school and guiding those young artists. And thank you. I'm honored that you used my book. Well, I can't take credit for it. My editor at Random House, Luann Walter, called me in one day and said, "I think you have a younger audience than you know, and you should do something for them." And I thought about the poet Rilke's book, Letters to a Young Poet, and I came up with that title, Letters to a Young Artist, and I had a ball writing that book. And I hope it gives people courage. It's very hard to do this. It's very hard to live in such uncertainty about your worth and your value. And even if you become very successful, you don't necessarily feel that the compensation is comparable. Maybe it's too much, maybe it's not enough. And so in the end, we have to find a way of being in balance with ourselves. And I think that is something that Karine in particular is a person who, in my life, I feel very much that she has that ability to look for and find the balance in herself. And that's what makes her the muse, as she's been for so many great directors. I mean, y'all didn't mention, The Lion King. I mean, I know how much Julie Taymor loved and admired the work of Karine Plantadit, that she's able to deliver because she knows herself.
oh, thank you, Anna. That was such a beautiful letter. I'm glad we recorded that. I'm gonna keep. I'm gonna keep this, Anna, for sure.
Well, Anna and Karine, thank you so much for being with us here tonight at Foster's Forums. You're here for some exciting news as well. We have been thrilled to bring this series to all of you that tonight we're announcing we're going to continue Foster's Forums. So you'll be able, the first Monday of every single month, we are going to be in conversation with leaders within the theater community. So thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in the conversation. That's what we kind of strive to do, to hopefully inspire, to inform. These are all things that we hope to do at Foster's. Just a reminder, Venmo, our Venmo is at Foster's Residency. Super, super quick. You could go to make a donation or to make a tax-deductible donation. You can go to www.fostersresidency.org. Karine, Anna, thank you. I know, spending your time with us, we are extremely grateful. That's the biggest gift you could give to us. So thank you.
Jason, good luck. This is such a great project and very needed in the world right now. I wish you the best.
Thank you for everybody.
Bye bye, sister Karine. Bye bye. Au revoir. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Wait, can you do me for a second? Come on, do it.
No, I can't. I can't.
Come on, come on.
I would have to study. I can't.
Oh, I understand. I understand about studying.
Thank you. We wish everybody a really happy New Year.
Anna.
Yeah, Anna, Karine, happy New Year.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.